architecture started in a cave, and where architecture is now, there's been a lot of morphosis in that time, in that period.
It is important to understand that culture in itself is a preservation and an understanding of one's history.
That's one thing that really inspires us. Going to a space which was inhabited by a man, our sort of forefathers and mothers.
We've been for the last maybe century or so been doing the same thing over and over, but I think it's time now we ask, where are we going from here? What's the next thing? And I think that's something we want to explore.
It's an explicit thing to say origin is just as important as the final product.
In a way, that was the start. And bizarrely, it could be the end. It could be the final chapter of architecture as we know it, back to the cave. The map of Africa. We flip it around because in space, there's no up or down. And by doing that, we're questioning how the map of Africa, and in fact the world, is represented. So that's the reason why we sort of try to look back and slow down, look at the detail, because we find there's more value in doing that.
Architecture addresses one of the most basic needs of a human being, which is shelter. You can escape art, you can escape music, but you cannot escape architecture.
Before man was able to actually create symbols, architecture was present. When we talk about architecture in today's world and how it's transgressed over time and what we perceive architecture to be, from the shack to the skyscraper tower, there's a language. And that language is our perception. It's the perception that we have of those follies or spaces.
Architecture is usually defined in the sort of Western developed mind frame, and we are not given a platform to talk about it.
A city is that makeup of people living together, and when people live together, there's problems that arise, and those are some of the things you then start addressing in that context of the city. What are the problems that have come about because of this permanent settlement of very many human beings, and how do you solve those problems?
The focus in architecture is always looking at the pristine house in Muthaiga or in Runda. People think that's architecture, that's what the pursuit should be. But we're saying no, it should cater to solve the problems of the majority within the void. And in a way, that's why we have, not intentionally, found ourselves working in projects in Kibera, Mathare, Dandora, because really that's where the biggest need for architecture to impact.
When we look at vernacular architecture and how we existed as Africans in different tribes from different regions of the country or land, we got colonized. And in that colonization, that also changed our perception of who we were, and that perception of who we were changed who we are, and that's how we today perceive architecture in a totally different light. Hence why a lot of us also find that moving to the cities is a means of progress. When we look at what Cave is trying to do in terms of tackling certain problems, what was the mindset of early man? What were the lack of preconceived notions, the things that would actually make you think, if I try this, this could be the outcome?
We've developed and designed the process, and within that process, hopefully something magical can happen, with an experimentation of materials, experimentation of how to build, and experimentation to even say, actually, we shouldn't build, You don't need to build here. I can't wait for that day I can tell a client that you actually do not need a building, Aye, aye, aye.